Alright everyone, just me again. And today's video is going to be about the Transformers again. And what I shall be talking about is my feelings on the effectiveness of the two different factions, the Decepticons and the Autobots, and then also lead on to their descendants, the Predacons and Maximals respectively. And what do I mean by effectiveness? Well, it's something that's been bugging me for a while, ever since I started watching the G1 cartoons from the original Transformers series, and then, well, actually before that I watched the Beast Wars. The Beast Wars was the Transformers I grew up with, and the ones that really introduced me to Transformers per se, and then I slowly started getting into the whole G1 stuff. I've loved them both for very different reasons. And I think there's definitely enough space in the Transformers mythos for fans of both, and also the individual fans that like both series. Anyway, going back on track. So what do I mean? Let's look at both factions first. The Decepticons. So they were the military faction. They were the militarized robots that made plans. They launched ambushes, they planned ahead, they stockpiled resources, and they had campaigns and action. And the reason that they often failed was not just like the incompetency of some of their members, and not just the backstabbing of other members and such, but usually just due to circumstances. Some Autobot would turn up out of the blue to foil their schemes, or something they didn't expect would happen. But well, I suppose I should emphasize more about the backstabbing and the power struggle within the Decepticons, and that really did have a major factor on quite a few of their aims. And I know how much we should be rooting for the Autobots being the good guys. I know the Decepticons were always a bit more of the fan favourites because they had better alternative modes, and just to be honest, you'll remember, say, Optimus Prime and a couple of the Autobots from the original series, but more often than not, actually, you'll remember more of the Decepticons just because they had better personality quirks and everything. You might not necessarily like them, but you definitely remember them more. Now, I know we should be rooting for the Autobots because they're the good guys. I know that they can be excused because they're not military bots. They were commercial, good robots that reprogrammed themselves to be able to fight a war for their freedom and justice everywhere. But often, more than not, they're really ineffective. I saw the Autobots a number of times get outwitted, outsmarted by the Decepticons. A number of times the Autobots fell into traps set up by the Decepticons. There was one episode where they short-wired and they were chained up and they're about to be executed. They only saved by the fact that some of the remaining few Autobots sent out the temperamental Dinobots to save them. There was another time Optimus got infected by a bug that made him go completely mental. Other Autobots got the same. A number of times they got creamed by Devastator and the other combiners of the Decepticons. I suppose what I'm getting here is, for the good guys, the Autobots didn't really plan ahead. They didn't seem to have a plan of campaign. Most of the time they were reactionary towards any Decepticon plots, and they always seemed to be on the defensive. If I don't really recall, there's a couple of times when the Autobots learned of Decepticon plans and took advantage of them in order to, foil them. But again, that's reactionary. They didn't actually, a lot of the time, they seemed to be in their base, and if the Decepticons were up to something, they'd go and foil the scheme, or they would be defending this, that, or the other. They never seemed to make any effort to actually end the war, from what I could see. I mean, the start of the movie, the Decepticons have returned to Cybertron, they've conquered the planet, the Autobots again are on the defensive. They show that they're planning a plan of attack against the Decepticons, but then the Decepticons outwit the Autobots once more. and attempt to destroy Autobot City, and they're on the defensive. Lots of Autobots die. And the entire movie, the Autobots are being hounded and such. And I got the sense of that as well from season 3 of the cartoon, when the when Rodimus took over and such. At first, the Decepticons were scattered, but then when Galvatron came back, he became a lot more of a threat. And it just seemed, they seemed to be pressured again. And so as much as you don't like the Decepticons for being the bad guys, at the very least they took the initiative, and they actually seemed like they were wanting to try and win the war, whilst the Autobots were always just, a lot of the time, were, like I said, outwitted and on the defensive. And that was followed through into the Beast Wars. So you had the Maximals chasing the Predacons. They both factions ended up on a planet, took alternative forms. Watching the cartoons again, it always seems to me that the Maximals again are, let's see, they're either patrolling the planet for some reason, or patrolling their sectors or something, and they're doing exploration scouting. Doing exploration scouting. They're at their base, scanning and things like that, or they're on the defensive. I don't hardly ever recall, in fact I can't recall anything off the top of my head, of a time the Maximals are coming up with a plan of action to end the Beast Wars, to take the fight to Megatron and the Predacons. I know it's the kind of thing where the Predacons are the aggressive ones and the Maximals are the defensive ones that don't like conflict, but come on guys, I mean, you're engaged in a war. You have to be able to start planning ambushes to gain advantage and such. It didn't seem like the Maximals were that bothered. Love him or hate him, Megatron actually was making plans of action. He was ordering jamming towers to be put up. He was coming up with plans of action to change Maximals into Predacons to bolster his ranks. His men launched ambush after ambush to try and take out Maximals. Most, again, incompetency, a lot of backstabbing and betrayal, hell of a lot of backstabbing and betrayal. I don't understand much more than G1 cartoon. And that was mostly just Starscream and the occasional Decepticon trying to gain power and position. In this, most of the Predacons were either disloyal to Megatron or trying to take control here, there, of the Predacon faction. And I don't understand why Megatron kept allowing them to get away with it. I know he needed troops, but come on, mate. There's only so much you can take before you are gonna, permanently put someone offline. And so let's say incompetency, backstabbing, betrayal. As much as all those factors stop the Decepticons' plans, the Predacons' plans, sorry, as much as the Maximals, occasionally having some good luck or just the ability to stop them, the Predacons were not without their faults as well. I'm just trying to remember the point I was getting at previously. So, damn it, I can't remember what it was. Sorry guys, I had a really good point I was going to try and make, but I can't remember what it was. But I think I covered most of the points here. The fact is, I can't root for the Autobots or the Maximals as much as I want to, because I just keep getting infuriated that they don't take the initiative. They don't seem to be as bothered as they should be about trying to end the Beast Wars by taking the fight to their enemies. In fact, to be honest, I can't think of how they would have won the original wars. I know they did. I know that's the reason why the Maximals were the predominant faction on Cybertron, and the Predacons were then angry with them and wanted to rebel. But I can't think of how they would have won against the Decepticons then, unless there was some vicious infighting that lessened the Decepticons' military power. But yes, anyway, I hope that's made my points across. That doesn't mean by any means that I hate G1 or the Beast Wars. I love them to pieces, but you know, you have to acknowledge the faults and things at times to fully appreciate them. As much as they did have faults, they're still great cartoons, and they are much better than some of the stuff I could name that is on TV now. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll bid you adieu.